Hi, I'm Caden Roach. I wanted to talk to you about moral failures and the view of the church. So you might ask, what is a moral failure classified as? And I have a little slideshow here. I wrote down moral failures are typically when a person in high position or a pastor does something that contradicts the views of the church and or Christianity, usually seen as like sexual sin or abuse, but not limited to it. It could be flat out just abuse of power and leadership. I've seen a lot of that before, not specifically in my church, but just in media. A lot of people talk about that and see how leaders exploited their leadership. One example of this, I brought up Hillsong Church and Carl Lentz, which is a very, very popular case. Hillsong was widely known as the fastest growing church in the world at this time, while having churches in many countries and many in America as well. But in the midst of that growth, a pastor by the name of Carl Lentz was discovered to be having an affair on his wife in 2020. And he was noted to also have control issues, manipulation issues, and hunger for power. Like he always wanted more. This moral failure effectively tore down the name of Hillsong Church within media and the complete view of the church in general, which was obviously a positive view beforehand. And many of the churches closed down or even changed their name because of what Carl Lentz had done. And then another one I had given an example for is one that was more recent. I said, on a recent note, Gateway Church was the largest church in the U.S. as of 2024. But recently, the pastor named Robert Morris was discovered to be having a moral failure back in the 80s when he was dating a young girl who was 12 years old. He immediately resigned after this, and it affected a lot of the people in the church and outside of the church, and even people who aren't Christian critique Christians because of moral failures like this. I personally have a friend who went to Gateway Church and now they don't because of said moral failure. The next slide, I wrote, how have issues like this that I just used examples for affected the capital C church? So just the church as a whole, people, just the people who go to church and things like that. These issues and ones like it have affected the church and how Christianity is viewed by secular people by justifying an already bad taste that they have, who could be experiencing church hurt, or could be deconstructing their faith, or maybe don't even believe at all, just have a negative view of Christianity. That could be giving context to them as to why they should be deconstructing their faith, or should be more church hurt, or more pretty upset at Christianity as a whole, rather than just being upset at people. Even people who don't work in ministry have seen things like that, even in the workplace. So it's pretty common. It's just the church is on that high pedestal that it should be on, and I agree with that. So I wrote down some steps on how to have a healthy ministry and how to prevent / rebuild if it already has happened. Talking about a moral failure. I wrote, number 1, remain rooted in your faith. Your faith will be your most important and outstanding thing you have when you go through troubles like this in your church. So I'm talking about someone who is under a pastor, and the pastor goes through a moral failure, what you should do. Keeping your foundation is your most important thing you can do. 100%, your faith is 100% the most important thing you should have in that hard time that you're going through. Second, hold people around you accountable. Being held accountable is uncomfortable, but often what a pastor should be having done to them when they are going through something that they shouldn't do, or starting to step into something that they shouldn't do. Keeping that standard really high, holding the standard that should be set in churches. Number 3, be vulnerable and allow it, and allow vulnerability, not just allow it. If your church has created an uncomfortable space for people to the point where they can't be vulnerable with you in what they're walking through, something is wrong. Obviously, you have to have that healthy culture and be able to be inviting and be vulnerable for people. Number 4, have an encouraging culture. In ministry, you should always be encouraging and empowering to your culture and your ministry partners. This keeps morality high and people happy with their jobs and what they're doing. You need to be able to have a healthy ministry to be able to have a healthy foundation. And these 4 steps that I just listed are 4 steps that you can take to keep your ministry healthy and preventing moral failure, like 100%. That's all that I had. Thank you for listening.